So hi, everybody. So actually the quick message for today is we're actually not holding the zoning revision committee meeting, but canceling it happened too recently to get it on the town calendar. So I don't expect either Connor or Jude to join because we're working on document reviews offline, and that's what we're doing. So we're doing document reviews right now, and the best use of everybody's time is to keep reviewing the latest document as opposed to, so people are still doing document reviews. So they're not going to be joining today, just to let you know. So I wanted to make sure I came on. I didn't want to just have nobody, everybody in the waiting room waiting forever. I want to just share that message. So I'm on in case. I'll probably stay on for about 15 minutes, and whoever joins, I'll just let them know that we're not having the ZRC meeting.
Appreciate it. The next regular meeting would be on the 27th, which is Memorial Day. Are you?
Oh, well, there you go. There's a good point. A very good point. Yes. We need to figure out what to do about that. Let me see if I can reach either Jude or Connor via text, because you're right. Waiting a whole month would be a long time to wait.
Laura, related to the document review that you guys are doing, is it possible for us to get a copy of the document?
Well, it's pretty rough. It's pretty raw at the moment. And what it is it's got different ideas, conflicting ideas. So it's not it's not an accurate statement of where we're going, because it has, again, conflicting ideas in it. So it would be possible.
So then how do we keep up with what's changing and what's happening with the document?
That's a very good question. And so yeah, so in any event, when we have an updated level, I think it's a better use of people's time when we have an updated level that's not quite, because right now it's kind of a brainstorming document that says, well, we could go, various ways that are like way apart from each other. So I don't know it's fruitful for people to latch onto that, because it'll generate a lot of noise that is, in my view, not fruitful. So I think it would be smarter to wait until we have a document that was actually, I put my comments in where the status is right now is I put my comments in and then sent it off to Jude and Connor, but they just got it today. So they thought instead of looking at it all together, they wanted to have a chance to look at it and kind of digest it a bit. So it may be that what's there, we feel like, oh, we can go work on it together all in front of everybody, or it may be, I mean, I don't know. They need to have a chance to digest it. So I want to give them the chance to digest it and see what their thoughts are. Again, I think that since it's so hot off the press, it's not really fruitful it's not the valuable time, valuable for people to spend their time on.
Yeah, it sounds like they didn't have time to prepare for the meeting. So that's why the meeting's kind of being canceled, which is fine. I completely understand.
Right.
I guess what I'm concerned about is moving the lawmaking process behind closed doors, because as you know, our concerns about how things have trended, and Connor and Jude, who I know are spending a lot of time working on this, have a very particular point of view in this pursuit. And I do really appreciate everything that you're doing to keep things kind of walking a middle road, Laura, and I recognize that, and I really do
Thanks.
appreciate that. And I know that is not an easy line to walk. But I am understandably very concerned about their biases and their points of view and their interests. And, I want to make sure that, something isn't being done and that we need to address more publicly and
Yeah. Well, so what I had said to each of them today, well, first of all, the public meetings law is when you have a quorum, if you're going to have a quorum, you need to meet in public. But
Right.
there's nothing to stop people from meeting one-on-one. And honestly, on the town board, we do meet one-on-one because sometimes there are things that make sense to do. And especially like if we're interviewing candidates for something, a lot, well, sometimes those are done in executive session, but sometimes it depends on what it is. But if you have smaller groups, it's fair to kind of work things out and then get someplace. So in any event, and what I had said was with this level of a document, in my vision is, I mean, I was laying out some things because I did a reset. Because even though some things made sense, you make this argument on this line, that argument on that line. Oh, okay, this makes sense, that makes sense. The other things one by one, but you add it all up and it's like, oh no, this aggregate of decisions is not the right spot. So I did do a reset and said, well, hey, on some of these different topics, here's a viewpoint. And then they just want to have time to review that viewpoint. And right now there's two columns in some places. One is my viewpoint and one is, and their viewpoint is the other column is where we got so far, but which may or may not really match their viewpoint. And I thought the best thing to do is let's get all of the viewpoints in a document. And then when we see the big picture of what everybody's idea is, we'll be in a better spot to start trying to merge. So again, the document right now is, again, it's a little raw. And so I think when we have something, and we'll still talk openly about who believes what and who agrees with what or disagrees with what. So we'll still be having those conversations. But in any event, that's just where we are. So I did text both Connor and Jude about when our next meeting will be, giving them the option, should it be 1 week from today? Because they'll have had time to look at the document by then. Should it be 3 weeks, Mondays from today? Or would we just cancel and just have it be the first meeting time in June, which would be the second Monday? So I'm not sure how soon I'll get an answer. So anyway, so how will you know what's happening in the background? I don't know, but again, I think the current document's pretty raw and won't be fruitful for anybody to look at because it doesn't really match a consensus of anything. It's kind of like one person's opinion and we're a 3-member committee. So we'll see.
And what's being done to add some additional, what's this committee like? What is the makeup of this committee supposed to be? Like how large of a committee or small of a committee is it allowed to be? And what are the requirements for participation in the committee?
Yeah, in my opinion, the committee can be any size as long as it's effective. And it started out as a 7-member committee. I actually think there are some committees in town, like if you read about the WEC, for example, or probably even the planning board, we have some town laws and there are even some state laws, but there are some laws that govern how big a committee is. If it's a formal committee, like the WEC or the Woodstock planning board, it is formal to say how many members it should be. There's nothing formal that says, there's no rule that says how big our committee needs to be. So if it's effective, I'm happy. If we're effective and we're doing what I think is good judgment and using common sense and doing truly what's best for Woodstock, I'm not concerned. Is it a 3-member, 4-member, 5-member, 6-member, 7? If you get more than 7, it gets a little unwieldy. So we had a 7-member board. 2 members had health issues and could not attend meetings. We went to 5 members. 1 member did drop out and 1 member went to county legislator and just said, look, I'm consumed. I just can't. Anyway, so we have the 3. I think 5 is a good number. We have a lead on somebody who's actually in the ZBA who does have an interest, who I've spoken with, and I think would be perfect. He's got state level experience on solving issues as well as local. And he's very interested, but people should always be at a meeting before we add them. So we do have a lead on somebody that's expressing interest that I've spoken with that I think will be excellent. So we're going to go through the process. In terms of what the qualifications are, I'm not looking to add warm bodies just to get to a number of 5. People that have experience with zoning law, I think, because we're going to be doing the STR law, then we'll go on to other things. And so people who have experience in general with government and laws, but also, well, dealing with laws, especially, and especially if they have knowledge in Woodstock zoning laws. So I have talked to somebody on Woodstock's planning board who works with laws all the time. So I think our 5th member, in my opinion, would be good to come from the planning board, somebody who has worked with Woodstock laws. And the thing about the ZBA, both planning board members and ZBA members do have some ideas of what works with the laws and what doesn't work with the laws. And when you try to apply laws to people's for people's firsthand experiences, and you're living those. I was on the planning board and you live those. People come in, they have issues, and you're trying to solve the issues, and well, you follow the law, but then you realize the law might not make sense in some areas, and you say, well, maybe we could change the law because it's not serving the public in the best way. So in any event, people who have been on the ZBA and or the planning board, and they may have other governmental experience as well. So I'm not just saying it has to be ZBA or planning board, but somebody who has governmental experiences that understands how to work with real life situations in town, I think would benefit this. So I did send an email to the chair of the ethics board to explain this is an advisory committee, and what if we had somebody from like the Woodstock Short-Term Rental Association? What if we added somebody from that association to our group? Would that be a conflict of interest, because they do have a stake in the game? And I didn't see a response back yet. I didn't check actually today, but I checked a couple of days ago and I didn't have a response back yet. So I'm not sure whether if we add somebody, and I saw, Linda, I saw your chat comment. If we had somebody who has a financial stake in the game, it would seem to me that could be a conflict of interest. And I did try to reach out to our ethics board chairperson to confirm. But anyway, in any event, I'm not.
Well, I mean, everybody has stake in the game. I mean, is the fact of the matter.
Sure.
You're writing laws for the town. So it's not just, like, for example, Jude wants her neighbor to stop short-term rentaling her house.
Well,
So
she tells me she doesn't have a neighbor that's short-term rentals.
she complains about people walking on her property or maybe it's her friend's property. I don't know, but she complains she has a very specific point of view and a very specific interest. It may not be specifically financial, but she obviously has a perspective. So I think, it's not a committee that gets to vote. We're not on the town board, but I do think that, our views are important. And I think also, in addition, I think not just our point of view, but our experience, because I think some of the stuff that's coming up is going to be impossible to enforce, difficult to regulate and monitor. And, I think that, and I clearly understand, different points of view, but I think that, like, if we write a law, we want to help write a law that's enforceable, that we care. Like, I think the whole thing is that, I think a lot of the stuff that's coming up is not going to fix the problems that they're talking about. And I think that, we want to, a well-written law can solve most of the problems that Jude and Connor are concerned about. And in fact, what's being put together right now doesn't really address those concerns. So I do think that there are lots of value perspectives that should be included in this particular topic, but also, like, on the committee in general. I think that, like, a committee of 3 is a very small, audience to be crafting legislation for the town.
But well, except for the fact, I think and pardon me if I'm looking aside here, but I wanted to respond to Connor responded on the next meeting, so I just want to get a response back. I believe the committee that wrote the entire zoning law was a 3-member committee. So that the entire zoning law, when Woodstock didn't have a zoning law, and now Woodstock does, because I forget if it was late 70s or was it late 80s. I forget exactly when the zoning law came in. I think that was a committee of 3. So I'm not concerned about, I don't think we should have a radical group of 3. I believe we should have 3 people who are, if the number's 3, they should all be grounded and looking to do what's best for Woodstock, and also understanding when whatever size this committee is, when the law happens, it's going to go to the town board, which is a 5-member committee. And so I'm just going to pull up chats here because I know Linda's asking some questions. I think that the advertising did happen, Linda. So I think besides my opinion that says it makes sense to have somebody that, that has some some background that matches what we do. I do believe that there was some advertisement because we have a number of committees that had openings. So I do believe advertisement did happen by the town. So, okay. But anyway, this is a process. Another thing that I will say is whether or not there's an STR owner on the ZRC as we deliberate STRs, as you know, I listen to what you all say, and that is causing me to be more grounded and more broadened, so to speak, in terms of making sure we're doing the right thing. So your comments and your activity on these calls is, I believe, helping me have a better view of things that, we'll all stand up and say, I mean, you heard me in a previous meeting, I'll stand up and say, this just isn't right, and I'm not going with this because, I can't agree to this or that. If things are, and it's hard to hit the pendulum in the right spot, because if the pendulum is too lenient, it's not good. If the pendulum is too restrictive, it's not good. I do believe, and, I see Woodstock as tourism is one of Woodstock's industries. We need to have a place for this tourist to stay, but we also need to have a place for people that want to live here to live. And we also, so getting the balance, and you're right, a stricter STR law isn't going to solve everything, because COVID and everybody leaving the city and wanting to get a place outside drove up demand, and that drove up prices. So things are, it's a tricky thing to figure out how to solve as many problems as we can. It is tricky. But I think getting things too strict, I think, is not the answer either. So, not only hurting some businesses in town, including STR owners, but other businesses will be hurt if we're too strict. But if we're too lenient, it's problems with people being able to live here. So we want to hit the right balance, and we're not done yet.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And we do really appreciate how much you've been listening and the time that you've been giving and the open-mindedness. So please don't think that has gone unseen. So can you notify us by email about the meeting when it gets rescheduled?
Well, I think when it gets rescheduled, the best thing to do is check the town calendar. I'll get with Connor and Jude and find out whether they think meeting in 1 week, or the choices are A, meet in 1 week, B, meet in 3 weeks, C, just skip the second meeting in May altogether and just pick up the second Monday in June. So those are the choices I've given. And the best thing to do is to check the town calendar. I'm not sure if you give me your email, if you put it in the chat, I will email you when I know. So, and I think if you'll allow me a change in subject, you'll see in the lower corner of my screen the azaleas are blooming.
I do see
They
that.
are.
We have some amazing azaleas too.
It's a lovely time of year, I have to say.
And the deer aren't bothering them?
I do have a fence that's keeping the deer out. So. So yeah, I have an azalea on the front of the house, and the deer have decimated that. And I have a rhododendron in the front of the house, and up to 6 feet tall, it's got nothing. Everything on the rhododendron is, because the deer get to that. They leave forsythia alone. Somebody said they don't like yellow. They leave forsythia alone and daffodils.
Yes, we have lots of daffodils. They don't bother them.
Yeah.
And I think I planted a crabapple tree about, 3 or 4 years ago already. And I think I'm brave enough to take off the deer fencing now. I think it's tall enough to.
You know what I learned? I'm going to tell you something that I learned, and it was a tough lesson to learn. I had this shack of a wooden barn, and I wanted to replace it with a garage that was going to hold up. It's like a temporary building that I replaced with a regular building. So I had my contractor, since some trees came down, I had him plant trees, and he planted trees. And about 2 years later, I said just what you said. I think they're good enough. I'll take the wire from around them. Well, it turns out in the fall, a deer they call it rutting, but they have fuzz on their antlers, and they rub against a tree. Yeah. They killed half of my trees. I saw what they were doing, and I put the wire back around. So my advice to you is,
thank you for telling me that, because my wife has been agitating to take the wire down, and I'm more cautious, but I hadn't thought about the antler thing. Yeah.
Well, or take them down for the summer, but I don't know when they start to rut. But you want to put them around, because honestly, if they take all the bark off all the way around the tree. So I have some trees totally died, and I have some trees the root ball was so strong. I have shoots coming up, even though the tree itself died. I have shoots coming up, and I'm trying to put wire around them and let them grow into a tree because I lost the tree. And anyway, yes. So you can lose trees, even though the tree that they can't, things are too tall for them to eat. Yeah, I'd hate to see other people lose trees like I did. I mean, it was, it was heartbreaking. I had planned ahead. I had planted some yellow trees here for the fall. My fall plan was right there. I had the trees that were going to turn yellow, the one that were going to turn red. Anyway, I have half the trees now. But believe me, I saw what happened to a couple of trees and I wired the rest of them, but it was too late for some. So anyway, okay. So Heather, I have your email address. Does anybody else want me to? I know I have Linda's and I have Terry's. Michael, I think I probably have yours, but I don't know if you want to put it in.
And Heather will copy.
I'll share it.
As cross.
I just to echo Heather, I do very much appreciate your sort of level-headedness with all this and trying to start a middle way. I mean, I haven't volunteered for the committee. I do have land use experience and stuff, but I figured ethically, because I'm a short-term rental owner, I shouldn't be on the committee, so I haven't stepped forward to
for this. Yeah, for this purpose.
But I do think it's valuable, as we have been informally, at the state coming to meetings, speaking at the end. I echo Heather that I think there would be a value of having us as some sort of, if it's permitted, non-voting members or observer members or something who have a chance to speak during meetings. Because one thing I'm concerned about is that if you're in the middle, and you're very level-headed, and if you have two members who are over here, it's still what comes out of the compromise here may be fairly far to one side, and it would be a real disappointment for everyone, and rude to the members of the committee who had spent all their time, and inefficient for everyone, for the town board to sort of be looking at it and wanting to not throw it out wholesale, but thinking, wow, this is really not that useful a work product for us. So if you have some voices, over here and some over here, and you're in the middle, what comes out is more likely to be something that the town board can.
Well, I think, but I do feel like I'm listening, though. I do feel like I'm listening. I do feel like you all get to speak, and it's a process. So when we have a level of the document that it makes a little more sense to share, then I think having you all weigh in at that point in time is going to be helpful, because it's not helpful now because the document's just too all over the place. But when we have the next iteration of it, I think will make more sense, and then I'll be happy to share it, and you can weigh in.
Well, I appreciate that. And one thing I forget who I was speaking with. They also suggested checking in on what the status is of the number of permits that are out there now after the fee hikes, and as the market, the short-term rental market in general has sort of tanked, and some people are just getting out of it anyway because it's not worth their time.
Okay.
And it may be, I'm reaching a little here, but the problem may have sort of self-limited to some extent. There may not be an urgent short-term rental problem at the moment that needs to be fixed. I think there certainly was real concern, and there's a real problem with lots of people without permits, the market going crazy with the COVID era, housing prices going through the roof, quality of life, noise, and garbage issues. It might be worth sort of taking the temperature of the town to see how much of a problem there really is at the moment.
Well, and I know a litmus test I would say is, I was on the board when the first STR law, when the current, which is the first STR law, got put in place, and it got put in place because meeting after meeting after meeting, we had people coming into the town board saying, you have to do something because this is just a disaster. And people that were just inconsiderate, and they left their garbage out, and the bears were going all over the place, and the noise carriers, and people were just inconsiderate. And, and we put the STR law in place. We put the noise ordinance in place. We did a number of things. And I can say the litmus test is we're not having people come in there's no steady stream of people coming into the town board saying, oh, this is a disaster, you have to fix it, which is what we had, which is why we did the law in the first place. So, but I think that there may still be some things, because we did start out with presentations from the housing committee and some other presentations and the county weighing in, and as Linda Lover was on the STR committee itself. So, so in any event, in any event, we do have people who, and those are groups that I respect, certainly. So who did say, you know, it should be shored up a bit more, because Woodstock seems to be having this huge number of STRs percentage wise based on housing compared to other towns. So there was some urging to shore things up a bit. But I agree with what you're saying. It doesn't need to be drastic, in my opinion, which I think is your opinion. It doesn't need to be drastic, but we do need to really have a good look at the law and really do.
I think that was always the intent of the law, that it was going to be revisited after some period of time, because it was sort of a new phenomena in general with Airbnb and these online platforms. You know, as you've heard us say a million times, I think the Ulster County folks and stuff comparing, you know, Kingston rates to Woodstock rates, it's apples and oranges. There's two different economies, two different communities, two different.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So.
All right. But I appreciate very much your with all of this.
So we're still working it, and it's a journey, and you're certainly welcome to come to all meetings. And even though there's some offline reviews of the documents, we're not having a meeting, the three of us. You know, any meeting that we have, I will let Heather know. I'll let Terry know you're here. I'll let Linda know. And I know, Heather, you said you would let others know. So when I get it, when I get an answer from both Jude and Connor about when the next meeting is, I'll let you know. But it would be on the town calendar. I don't think I've, you know, one of the two has responded back saying that leaning towards June. So that being the case, I wouldn't expect it to be in the next week. So it would either be 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now is what I'm guessing. I'm just pulling my calendar up here. So it would either be June 3rd or June 10th. You know, June 10th would be 4. So I think check the town calendar. I'll try to get the word out, but it'll be June 10th for sure. And then check the town calendar for whether June 3rd shows up. But since one of the two has indicated June is better than May, I'm thinking that person wants more time to be thinking about stuff.
Okay. Thank you so much, Linda. Have a good night.
Okay, and I'm Laura, but
sorry, Laura. I'm looking at Linda.
You might have been thanking
Laura.
Linda. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at Linda and I'm talking to you, but thank you so much.
There are things to thank Linda for. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and close, because I think we've had a good conversation, and see you in a few weeks.